I'd say
You're
go ahead if
welcome.
you.
Oh, it is 5
I'm gonna
o'clock.
go.
Okay, great. We shall go ahead and call this meeting to order. I have Council Member Rock, our newest council member is here, and Council Member McClimans and myself. Now, do we need to vote to make sure that we have Councilmember Rock on the CDC at this time?
Don't think so. I think that's done by.
I think that's done at council.
Yeah,
Oh, at
definitely,
council,
yeah,
okay,
council.
so I think we already kind of did that then, okay.
And I
We'll
don't,
discuss it
we don't
tonight.
need to vote to appoint you the chairman unless council member objects to that.
Okay.
I'm not objecting to anything.
It took me 6 months.
Yeah,
I
right.
abstained from so many.
So I did have a chance to read through the minutes and I did not see any changes. It looks like we don't have any department reports or presentations unless that's changed. No? Okay, so then our first discussion action item is E. We are going to be discussing AB 24-83, Resolution 24-83, authorizing the professional services agreement with the BHC consultant for stormwater improvements project design and construction, contract document deliverables. A mouthful. So that will be on page 5.
Okay. I had a lot of questions about this. Are you gonna do a presentation or?
Yeah, I am prepared to run through the projects and look at the maps and answer questions and. Okay, so for Agenda Bill 24-83, authorizing professional services agreement with BHC Consultants for stormwater improvements, project design, and construction contract document deliverables. Authorization of American Rescue Plan funds was approved per Agenda Bill 23-69 on May 23rd, 2023 to complete stormwater improvement projects. City staff identified needed projects from the watershed protection plan and areas with a known history of flooding problems, and selected 4 problem areas to include in the design scope. BHC consultants submitted a scope and fee to perform design and provide all construction contract documents required to advertise the stormwater improvement projects for construction contracts. And staff is requesting authorization of $437,654 of ARPA funds for a professional service agreement with BHC consultants to complete the scope. For budget, we have a current balance of $996,852 and a budgeted balance difference of $559,198. So what I'd like to do is, in your packet, we have the actual project locations.
So before we talk about the actual project location, I was kind of like, so I need to understand how these correspond to what's in the comprehensive plan. Cause I couldn't get any of these guys back to the comprehensive plan. And I'm wondering, if we're not following that, how is that determined? Who determines the projects and why are they, how do we figure that out? Because the plan had clearly had, a number of elements in it for capital expenditures. I believe it's table 13 of the plan. Right? And I couldn't find these on there at all.
Well, 3 of them are part of the swell retrofit program.
Where is that at?
What page are you on, Councilmember McClellan?
It's in the, comprehensive
Oh,
plan
okay.
document.
Oh.
Project 411.
That's the watershed protection plan.
It's the watershed element of the comprehensive plan. I don't have a link to it. Andy,
I can send it out to the whole.
can you send it out? Yeah. So what you're telling me, because I'm trying to figure this out, right? So we plan $319,000 per mile per year, right? And it says water quality swale retrofit program roadways are our single largest source of improvement services, swale retrofit program. So this, and it says citywide, so that's what you're saying. So then how did you pick, given that, how'd you pick these two areas, right? And then the Fred Meyer.
I'd turn that over to your stormwater engineer.
Sure. I believe this particular segment, we've identified it as exhibit A1. It's the SR 410 eastbound 208 to 211. This one, I believe, was in that watershed protection plan.
There was a Fred Meyer element in here. that I
That's
saw.
probably it.
Is that it? I just didn't recognize it because it talked about the Fred Meyer one.
Yeah, I think it's.
Is 17 Fred Meyer, it said at Tall Firs, and it was talking about broken curb. Not a stormwater. Right?
I'm not sure where the tall firs description came in, because if they're thinking of like what's on private property, like the movie theater, this project would have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I didn't think that had anything to do with, yeah, so that's all I could find in there for Fred Meyer, which is kind of what I was like, oh, well, how are they picking this and why, and are there other areas, and, but then I'm like, I'm trying to understand, especially because we're going through this cycle of the comp plan, right, review and stuff, so this is my chance to understand how it plays, right, with what we're doing.
I will say one thing to keep in mind with this comp plan is we were actually just talking about this, and I'll let Drew get back into the specific projects. Is this comp plan is basically nearing its
And
end of its useful life. It has an adoption date of March of 2018, but really was a 2014, 2015 document. So it's nearly a decade old. So it's about this time that that continuity starts to break down.
Yeah, your
Right.
Jedi mind tricks, right?
Yeah. I'm not trying to get credit.
The fingers count.
No, I'll be honest. It's starting to break down because it's.
Yeah,
getting
no,
to-
I get it,
It's getting to the end of its
Right.
planning purpose. So we were actually just sitting today having the same conversation as we talk about the CIP for the next 2 years. So one of the things that you'll see in the budget for the CIP budget for 25-26 is to do a new stormwater comp plan in 25-26, so we can begin to refresh that project list over time. So from my understanding, most of these fit into the swell retrofit, and then I'd kind of, and we can do some more research on that for you. But I think Andrew has a lot of good information on how we picked these specific locations
Okay.
and these projects.
Jason, we do have new council members, so can you like with the abbreviations, CIP?
Yeah, capital improvement plan. So every 6 years, thank you.
I know it's gonna be
Yep.
an automatic.
No.
I should get
No.
it.
That point, what it is, not for now, I'm just listening.
No,
I figured
please.
maybe I'll figure it out.
No.
Here in a minute.
Please, if there's an
Yeah.
acronym that I throw out that you've never heard of, please just stop me in my tracks and I will go circle
We're
back.
still learning half of them.
Yes,
It's like.
it becomes part of my second language, and
CIP log.
Yeah,
We're good.
yeah,
Okay.
it's the capital improvement plan that we do, and has all of our capital projects that we're gonna do in the city over a 2 and 6 year period.
Thank you.
So to answer at least part of your question in terms of how do we select, I mean, some of the projects are done. We've already completed them.
Okay,
And then the other projects are,
well, I was talking about these three, because they weren't in here, and I'm like, somebody actually went through and did it, so I'm looking for were there outreach from the community going, every time it rains, our streets are flooded, or is it?
that's
Yeah,
a big
so
part of it, yeah.
what kind of drove it, right?
Yeah, that's a big
Trying to
part of it.
understand.
So, operations and maintenance staff, I mean, they're really the ones that are boots on the ground
Mhm.
that understand where our greatest need is for stormwater improvements. So we rely on, their knowledge of the system to prioritize a lot of these CIP projects.
Okay. All right, so it's probably most of this is from personnel saying, hey, this is
busted, needs fixed.
I mean, that, even that list there was generated from
Yeah,
the operations staff.
Okay.
I mean, their knowledge of where the problem areas are.
okay, all right. So, and then, so the area by Fred Meyer is, so Operation Maintenance said that that's an issue.
Yeah, so here, let me,
Kind of interesting.
generated, some photo packets here.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of explain what the, kind of hard to see everything from aerial. So,
You have another one?
Yeah.
so on this first one, on this first photo here, this is at the intersection of SR 410 and 211. And you'll see where, the stormwater runoff has kind of scoured the shoulder. It's picking up material. And when it picks up that material, it plugs the conveyance system and plugs the culverts. And so what we want to do with that is armor that with fabric or quarry spall or some kind of combination of the two to prevent that kind of sloughing into the conveyance system and plugging it. Because what will happen is that this will, if you look at page 2, the second photo, you'll actually see pooling water on SR 410.
And
Because
what's
of that
this
con-
one located? This one with the pooling water?
That is right next to Benny's.
Okay.
You're talking about the bottom
McDonald's.
picture with the water on the roadway?
Oh, that's McDonald. This is McDonald? Right there, McDonald. No, this one. Oh. Pretty sure it was right in front of Benny's.
Yeah.
And then on page 2, photo 1, sorry, I didn't mention this.
Yeah.
This one here is just a shot of the conveyance system existing where it needs a tune up. So there's no swale, there's no really where for stormwater to go. So it just will pool there. And then when it gets overwhelmed, it'll just, pool out on the shoulder and then out on the road. And then on page 1, the second photo, this is just a routine replacement of a grate. These herringbone style grates are, they're great for bicyclists, but not so good for stormwater collection, just because they plug up so easily. So part of this project will also include replacing those grates to vein grates, which are much more efficient and it won't plug as easily. And this intersection here in particular, last year I know was flooded out. So that'll be addressed in this project as well. Any questions on project number 1, SR 410 eastbound?
Yeah,
All the way
so-
through 11?
Yeah, so what was that project one? We had a cost for the design of that. What do we think the implementation is gonna cost? Is it like 5 times the
Well,
design?
on this particular project, this one here on SR 410, we're considering, having this one, be completed by operations and maintenance staff, depending on their, workload and ability. I'm gonna let Keith make that determination when the time comes. But we always try to give, those kind of opportunities to the staff if we can. But, we're overwhelmed with a lot of stormwater management in other places, a lot of street and maintenance and other times of the year. So if it works, our staff can do it.
Didn't that impact peak 14? Kidding.
That's a little bit of-
I mean, it'll eventually make it all the way down there, won't it?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
there was a question about, because we do, even though this area here next to McDonald's, this approach right here, we get lots of calls about that.
I've seen.
And I'm sure that
Out bad.
the council gets lots of calls about that. The issue is it's all private. And everything kind of does slope that direction. Will this project, help with that condition? I don't think that we're generating a lot of runoff that's going that far down that access, but, just so you know, that is not, responsibility of the city to address.
But are we addressing it?
We will, a little bit, because we'll be managing the runoff from SR 410, so that runoff will not contribute to the low spot where the potholing is, but, even after we complete this project, that will still be a problem.
This road here is private?
Yes, so
Hill
that's
11?
private from about my pen
Yeah.
down.
Okay.
Any other questions on project number one? Okay. So, for project number two, we have them both on one sheet. These are, 67th Street and 67th Street Court East. So the problem with this area is, this is an older, residential community in the city of Vine Lake. When it was originally developed, there wasn't a lot of, or any thought of stormwater management. And so stormwater, seeks the path of least resistance, and the issues that we have out there are, a lot of runoff on private property, a lot of, damage to, landscaping and, residences and whatnot. And so this is a project that's been on the staff's radar to address. And so, with this new system, it'll be what we call a parallel system. So it'll be, we're gonna try to infiltrate as much as we can, to the natural, ground, as much as the soils will take. And then, but it'll have an overflow conveyance system to West Taps Highway, and that's where we would connect, the system. So it's managed. It's not going to, run off onto private property and, go where it's not supposed to go.
We have all the right of way that we need for that.
We do with this first phase.
Yeah, cause that, like you said, it's an older, right? That road's pretty narrow. Right? So, yeah, and then the construction, obviously, like, we have a requirement, right, to put culvert under aprons, right, driveway aprons. Pretty sure there are no culverts on any of those driveways.
Well, there are, but the problem is, when they're installed individually,
Yeah,
you'll have elevations that go like this. And so when you have elevations of culvert that are different elevations, you can't get the flow. So you can't get the stormwater to any particular point. So it'll fill up into that particular basin, into that swale, and then when it gets overwhelmed, it starts to flood. So with this project, all those culverts would be yarded out and new culverts would be installed, so that, there's a continuous flow from point A to point B
and that's the city's responsibility.
to address the runoff.
Yeah, okay.
And then Drew, those were the ones that were specifically part of the swell retrofit program.
Yeah, so these ones are part of the swell. So it's a good point because, in order to be part of that program, we have to actually install swales. And we have to have a water quality element, to the project. So we can't, if we're just gonna do a closed conveyance system without any swale or water quality, then we probably wouldn't qualify. So we have to maintain that criteria. And then 62nd is pretty much the same. Both streets are very similar situations that you have, uncontrolled runoff going through private property. And the system that we're anticipating that we're going to use to address it will be similar on both streets.
So is this going to help people who are getting the pond areas by putting this swale system? Is that going to help improve their property, because it looks like there's a couple of different properties that are affected by the flow of the path. And they're getting the little pond area
Sure.
build up, so that would probably prevent them from being able to do anything to that piece of property if
Right,
it's
right.
always flooding or during a storm. So would this help, because it's gonna, looks like it's gonna direct the water flow towards the lake?
Right, right.
And then you're gonna have a filtering system to help clean it before it goes into the lake.
Sure, it'll have a water quality element on both segments. And so to answer your question, I mean, you know, we field a lot of questions about stormwater runoff and, you know, this particular property is discharging on me. What's the city gonna do about it? And those kind of things. But really, what we can do is only manage what we're responsible for managing. So if it's runoff from the street, you know, we're gonna do our best to manage that and prevent street runoff from discharging on private property.
Right.
So it would address that.
So to me, that sounds like that would be an improvement for people because they're not gonna have a pond
Sure,
every winter
right, right,
that could possibly freeze over.
correct. And then there's multiple residents on both these streets that, you know, have that dilemma. You know, I can't build my shop, because of this runoff issue. You know, what is the city gonna do? Or what can you advise me to do? And, you know, we do our best to, you know, address these spot issues. But with this project, you know, we'll be able to address multiple all at once.
Okay.
So there's a pond off of 76th Street East, approximate pond area. What's
Well,
that?
it's like, that's where all the runoff goes. Do you see it on the, top left?
Yeah,
And then-
we have the right of
Well,
way
this
for
one
that?
here.
Yeah, we have the right of way.
No, so this will be in this particular area we were proposing to do in phase 2,
Okay,
just because we don't have an easement to go across that property
yeah,
and tie into that low spot.
okay,
Because I mean, right at this area here, it's really the low spot of the whole 67th Street. So naturally, stormwater runoff is gonna want to accumulate there.
mhm,
And so, because of the timing of the way that the funding, you know, how you're allowed to spend the funding, this ARPA funding,
mhm,
the timing doesn't allow for us to, secure easements for that particular area of the project. Because we have to have the funds obligated in 2024. And that means construction contract signed.
mhm.
And so we would not have enough time to secure that easement inside of 2024. So that'll be part of our phase 2 project.
Okay, so, but we're not gonna flood their yard when we do this.
No.
And then they'll go, oh, you flooded my yard, and they'll be all cranky pants on us.
No, no.
You would be cranky pants too if you're young.
Yeah, I might have been all right.
No, I mean, that low spot it hasn't changed. It'll still be there.
Okay,
Um,
and then we're gonna go after an easement. We're gonna
that's
go
our plan.
ask them to go get it, okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that they'll be willing to, work with us on that, but
Yeah.
we won't know until we get into it.
So an easement would require the sale of a corner or something.
Not
They
necessarily,
would have to
not
give up a
necessarily,
corner of their property or?
no, not necessarily. It would just be an easement to run the pipe under their
Okay.
property. So it would,
Grant access to.
yeah,
Okay,
like we do with water and sewer easement, water and sewer lines that are located on private property. We have a access right to put that utility in for that specific purpose.
Well, won't we need an easement for the pond?
No, I think we're gonna try to drain the pond.
Oh, got it.
I think we're flowing away from the
You're
pond.
flowing away. Oh, well done.
that
Okay,
that
got
looks
it.
like a huge area of that piece of property, so, I mean, if you're looking at that little cloud there.
Yeah, but
little
they're, I
blue
think they're,
cloud,
I think they're, oh, so- yeah,
that
so the
looks like
arrows go away from it.
Major, yeah, so it's,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it would be taking it away
Hey.
so that they could utilize that portion of their property, which I think would be a benefit to them. So I would hope, unless they like it.
Right.
Maybe they have frogs.
They might, yeah, who knows? All right, got it.
Okay. Just real quick on the photo packet, for exhibit A2. This is a shot of, so this little catch basin right here where my finger is at is this orange structure
Oh.
here where my thumb is at. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're doing good job.
And so just so you know where the existing runoff goes, so from this catch basin, it goes across the street and discharges to this private property just to the south of the dotted line. Packet. And then the second photo is the end of 67th way down by West Taps. And so this area here is where we're anticipating the water quality element of the project. And there is a culvert down here by the stop bar lines
Mhm.
that we would tie into.
So is this gonna be like a pipe system or?
A parallel system, so you'll have a traditional swale with driveway approaches and culvert under the driveway approaches for, flow and conveyance. But also because the street is just, the elevations of the street, it's humpy, it's got a low spot, so it's tough to have one singular system that will convey runoff, because by the time you got to the end, it should be so deep that we would never do that.
Yeah.
So, with a parallel system, you'll have a combination of culvert pipe and conveyance pipe.
Okay.
So when the smaller swales are overwhelmed, it has a overflow into a conveyance pipe that's connected to the system at West Taps.
Okay.
So this isn't actually going into taps, it's just getting into a conveyance system.
Yes, but the conveyance system on West Taps does discharge to Taps,
Taps, okay.
but it's an approved,
Mhm.
water body for discharge. Any other questions?
But we're
on-
not adding any new entry points into taps,
No,
okay.
we'll use the existing outfalls.
Yeah, cause I see the little pink bar down there right on the lakefront, and I'm wondering what that is.
Oh, this here,
Yeah,
I think that was just the survey boundary that the consultant established, but I don't think that we need to survey down to
okay.
the shoreline on that. Any other questions on 67 Court?
Not for me.
And actually, yeah, it's good stuff, thanks.
Okay, all right, so let's move on to our last one here. So this is Inlet Island. And this is this is the very southernmost area of Inlet Island. Inlet Island is a very unique in terms of stormwater, because it's another one of those areas. It's an older area of the city. When it was developed, it didn't have a lot of thought into stormwater management. Runoff, it would discharge like the other streets that are similar to, path of least resistance. And sometimes, runoff would, it would be the open flow. And then people, you want to build to put a shed in or whatever, they'll put a pipe in. And, a lot of times those pipes will just, collapse, and then you got the stormwater problems out there. So we've tried to establish easements and address the stormwater issues as much as we can. But if we don't have easements, then we can't legally go onto someone's private property and address the runoff. And so this particular one is one that we selected because it does have an easement. And it is a known stormwater problem that we've had for years. So so runoff basically travels between two private parcels. But even though we have an easement there, it's not really, it doesn't really flow in a controlled manner. If we have high flows, then it's gonna flood. It's gonna flood private properties. Water's gonna leave the easement that it's supposed to be on and flood landscaping.
It's going to flood or has flooded?
Yeah,
Okay,
the guy to the right of it would be his basement gets water in it.
oh,
Thank you. I brought, he volunteered to, attend because I know he's been here a long time and has a lot of knowledge in terms of the field and where the problems are we have, so. I think we included a few pictures of this issue in our photo packet here.
Yep, crossing.
like they
into the yard.
attempted to
Oh,
put a
yes,
fridge
I got you.
drain in.
Okay, so on page, or for exhibit A3 to South Island Drive conveyance photos. So this catch basin here, which is across the street, South Island Drive. There's a conveyance pipe that goes
Mm.
to the property about where you see the first white arrow.
Mhm.
And then from that point, it's all open conveyance through the two parcels. So it goes from pipe flow to open conveyance.
So it's just like running on top of
It's running on the
the,
surface.
on the surface.
You can see the erosion in this.
Yeah,
Here.
yeah.
There's a little bit of a ditch that the elderly couple maintains there,
They tried to
It
do like
runs
a
right
French
down.
drain.
right next to their house. You can see the
Mhm.
sidewalk that walks around their house. Then it goes down into a guy has this concrete and a pipe that goes right to the lake. So it's,
Right at the edge of the shadow in this picture, that the pipe right there.
yeah, that runs down, you can
Right.
see at the end there, it goes into a pipe out to the lake.
And just for the record, Keith is our assistant superintendent for
Yeah.
street and storm. So he's the person responsible for the access filters.
So with this project, what we do is we would just do a closed conveyance from the street all the way to the connection point, to the outfall, to taps. So it'd be a buried pipe, basically.
And this is like our easement, so we already have it.
We have an easement there, yeah, that's why,
Okay.
that was one of the reasons why this, we felt like this particular location would be a good candidate,
Mhm.
because we had all that easement in place,
Yeah,
and we didn't have to delay the project.
okay.
Questions on the last project, South Island?
It seems like we're causing damage to somebody's home by not taking care of the problem too.
It'll
If their basement's
yeah.
flooding, that's probably not good.
Yeah,
They didn't build an indoor swimming pool.
no,
The sentiments are positive towards having this project done.
yeah, it's just, it's a liability to us because they kind of maintain it and they don't. This is rip the Band-Aid off, we'll fix it, and then we'll never have to enter their property other than to do regular maintenance, jet the lines and stuff like that. Now, it'd be destructive how we would do it. We're not sending 12 people with shovels. Yellow stuff would come in, they would be tearing it up, or we risk being next to their house and doing that. This would be repetitive, us doing it. If we put the tight line in, we can maintain it from the road with a jetter truck.
Okay.
And this is the one time we fix it and then it's less risk for everybody down the road.
Yeah. And, does this one need to have like a filtering system as well, because it's gonna be draining into tap?
Well, I mean, we don't anticipate, a water quality element with this particular, location, but I mean, there is water quality on South Island. This is just like the last leg of
Okay,
the discharge.
yeah.
So why does package one have a kickoff meeting? And package two doesn't? You know? Is it just the vendor's estimate? They've got a 4.1's a kickoff meeting. And 5. These are probably misnumbered here, probably 5, 1, 2, 5.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Were you saying that there's like two line items of the same thing?
No, yeah, no, it's like, I was wondering why, hang on, my screen. They're charging at $630 for a kickoff meeting in one place and not the other. Why do I need a kickoff meeting? Right? What am I kicking off on project one instead of project two? Cause
Well,
they're charging me $780 to attend the kickoff meeting.
Well, because, let me explain. Because of because this is ARPA funds.
Mhm.
And we have to have the funding obligated in 2024.
Mhm.
What we have told the consultant is that even though this professional services agreement will be the umbrella over all of the projects, we have to concentrate on 67th Street Court East first, because we have to get that design completed and advertised and contract for construction awarded in 2024. So we can't, so really, that's why there's a kickoff for that particular project by itself, because we have to move on that like quick. We don't have the time to just, design everything all at once. We have to fast track 67. And then in 2025, we can circle back and we can do 67th Street East, and we can do, SR 410, and we can do Inland Island. And, because of the, professional services agreement being signed in 2024, the funding is obligated so that we can actually do design in 25. Hopefully that makes sense, because then in 2025, we'll have to regroup and circle back with a consultant on those particular projects. So they're kind of like, it's one umbrella, but we're treating them as like separate because one is on a fast track.
Well, yeah, because you want to get a contract that you can sign so that the ARPA funds can be secured, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
So, but that's just for the design, there's no implementation. Right, this is just all design.
Well, this is design and bid ready documents for advertisement.
Right. Right, but you want the contract signed for the design, and in particular, you want that actually being executed.
Yeah, so for
Before the end
67th
of
Street Court East, we're gonna fast track that one. And we're gonna try to get that one advertised this year and have it awarded this year. We
Okay.
probably won't it'll be too late in the year to actually start a stormwater project. But, we can, because we have the contract signed this year, we'll be able to hit it in the spring.
So we're gonna take the design and we want to get an award out before the end of the year for the actual implementation of 67 Court East.
Correct.
Otherwise, we lose that money, right? If
Correct.
it's not implemented or put towards
Can we just
something.
buy a police car or something?
Yeah, and then sell it and then pay for the,
I have one.
for the stormwater swell. I think these funds are designated specifically for the
Yeah, we did
streets,
that.
right? Yeah.
23, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Okay, no.
Mm.
That's why we're here. Is
That's
there
why
any
I'm
other
not,
questions?
that's why I'm not answering all the questions. Cause I'd be like, I don't know. That's a true score.
Um,
You're doing good.
so, any more questions on that? I do know that, I got a request to have this put on, a full council issue for discussion, at a meeting. So as soon as possible, I would guess that we could have this put on, not the consent agenda, but
Would be
put it on full
23rd.
council issues.
23rd.
Yeah,
Here, I got my copy here.
okay.
So full council if you want it. So.
So I had one funny question.
Okay.
The markup in the PDF was by Kay Maturi, who appears to be the BHC consultant.
Okay,
Is that true? Grantee Maturi?
yeah, so she is our point of contact, BHC.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought. I was just thinking that,
Okay.
right? Because if you enable comment in the PDF, you can see she had lots of things.
Oh. Okay.
Which is good. It's okay. I just was wondering. Okay.
And we will move on to page 53 in the packet. And we're having this will be a discussion on the Sumner wastewater treatment facility preliminary budget draft 1.
So this is more of a FYI, early look. So under the section 6 of the current Sumner wastewater treatment interlocal agreement, Sumner was required to provide me as the public services director a copy of their draft budget by July 1st, which they have done. For any review and comment. This will also go to the joint advisory group, which if the CDC remembers is made up of 3 of the CDC council members. So all 3 of the CDC members will be on that JAC presentation. What I wanted to do is just give the council an early look. So you have time to ingest and digest that meeting. So when we have the next joint advisory group, you'll be able to ask Ryan and Michael Kosa, pointed questions about their budget.
You want to coach us?
I, it looked pretty standard to me. I will say as you go through this, I had this conversation with Chair Fullerton. It does break down into all of the little line items. And that's because we as the city pay 54% of the total operational cost of the wastewater treatment plant under our interlocal agreement. So that is 54% of the salaries, 54% of the benefits, 54% of whatever it takes to
Cell
run
phone bill.
that facility,
Right,
because it's 54% ours.
right. So we're hiring one new person then, right?
I believe so.
I mean, there's
yeah.
2 people in here, and if we're handling 54% of somebody's salary,
Mhm.
we're committing, this was my exact fear with
Mhm.
handing over authority to those guys with that contract, because they're just, they can add people, and and personnel are a commitment, right?
Mhm.
A truck is not a commitment. I can sell the truck, like
Yeah.
you said, right? But personnel, especially on some of these things, these people may think they have a job for life, right?
Right.
And then they just get more expensive.
Mhm.
Their benefits get more expensive. If they retire, you gotta buy them out, right? All that stuff. And I just look at it and I'm like, oh, really? There's 2 new employees in here. Is that reasonable? Were we expecting 2 new employees?
I know that there was one proposed for the pre-treatment side.
Yes.
There was a new position posted for the pre-treatment. The good news, I guess, on the pre-treatment, we don't pay 54%. So one benefit of the new interlocal agreement and tracking pre-treatment separate from O&M was that pre-treatment is not billed on how much effluent we send to Sumner. It's based on our non-domestic water users. And currently of Sumner and Bonney Lake total, we only have 41% of the non-domestic water users. So that's anything that's not residential. So we're only paying 41% of the pre-treatment cost. So we're actually paying a little less on pretreatment than we would have been under the old model. Under the old model, pretreatment was still billed, but it was just buried in O&M as part of O&M. When we separated it out because of the pretreatment program, we're paying a little less. So I think with the pretreatment being a new program, is it reasonable probably to have one person, Andrea, running the entire pretreatment program for 2 cities is probably unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so having 2 people for that would be, I would assume would be realistic, and Sumner is actually picking up like 59% of that cost.
Okay.
So I think there was an attempt to at least make it more equitable, because this isn't pretreatment's not based on how much sewer is flowing into the treatment plant. It's based on how many non-domestic water users. So I would say that there is some benefit to the city there.
Okay.
Also, so I was looking at this like, okay, we're literally having employees on our payroll, but technically it's not our payroll. So they're sending us we've never had this breakdown before.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're sending us, a bill. So it's like a big lump sum that we pay. What is it? Is it yearly or monthly, Jason? That
We pay a monthly bill.
a monthly
Well,
bill?
no, actually,
It's
now
quarterly.
it's quarterly.
Quarterly? Okay.
We pay a quarterly bill.
So they're
But
not
they charge us per
technically,
month, but we only get it quarterly and pay it off.
and they're not technically Bonney Lake employees.
they're
Would they
Sumner.
be considered Sumner employees?
Yeah, they're
but-
definitely Sumner employees.
Yeah. So, but we
And-
still have to help pay their salary because that's part of the cost of the
Mhm.
treatment, which we've always been doing anyway.
And I would say the new, we've been paying a portion of that pretreatment. It's probably growing
Well,
because,
we've been paying the salaries all
Yes.
this time. It's just we've never seen a breakdown where I mean, cause I was like, we're getting employees here, you know.
yeah, so this was one, I think, good thing that came out of the interlocal agreement is you get to have more transparency into the budget versus you owe us $2.1 million. We're not gonna tell you how we're spending. At least you're seeing how it's being spent.
Sure.
And the other employee that they're adding, I was just double checking, is on the operations side, and it is until 2026. But we are expanding the treatment plant to provide more capacity. So there's a correlation there, but I would encourage the council to specifically ask that question of Michael Kosa,
Mhm.
because they'll have more details and justification of why the operator is needed. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
The pre-treatment makes a lot of sense because we're standing up that program. Operations, we are enlarging the plant as part of the biosolids project.
Yeah.
I will say that we've put this in the budget already. I think the big cost that, council should be aware of is really on the capital side. And that's where we gave that presentation a couple months or about a month and a half ago. The capital for the project is going to be over the biennium nearing $20 million of expenditures. That's why we applied for that Public Works Trust Fund loan to cover our 54% of that capital cost. The big real cost of that is the biosolids projects, which makes up, $18.5 million of that $20-ish million in capital projects. As we've been down there, a lot of that is because that equipment is all from the mid 1980s and it's reached the end of its useful life. And instead of kind of piecemealing it and dragging it out over time, they're just going to do one big project and kind of update and modernize those improvements as part of this project. And we'll know in August whether or not we were successful in getting that Public Works Trust Fund loan. I've talked to Michael Kosa, and if one or both of us don't get the loan, we'll have to circle back and see what that looks like. Because it could be possible that Sumner gets granted a loan and we don't. It could be that we get a loan and Sumner doesn't get a loan. So, we'll have to see what happens in August when the award letters go out and whether or not we were successful in getting that trust fund loan.
And this would be a loan in addition to the loan for the water.
Correct. And that was the one that we briefed council on a few months ago, where we have a $9-ish million loan that came from the drinking water revolving fund to support the second lake, the first Lake Ridge tank. And then this would be a $10 million loan from the Public Works Trust Fund loan to support those capital improvements so that your ratepayers aren't kind of hitting that whole cost singularly. It's kind of getting spread out over the life of those facilities. Those are my big highlights, is that this has got a huge capital component. I have put a request into finance as part of our budget to track. Because right now, if you go into Eaton, capital and O&M all get merged into the
Merged
same
together,
line
yeah.
item. So
Really?
so I sent it as part of our submitting our budget documents this year. I requested that Sherry create, because we already created one for treatment, that we create a separate bars number for the capital so that we can track pre-treatment, O&M and capital separately, so we can see where that money is going more specifically as we look at our budgeting documents. Any questions?
Member McClimats, no questions?
No
more?
question.
Okay. Do we have any items for open discussion?
Gotten lots of nasty grams about parking.
Yes, I've seen
Right.
that too.
Do we want to talk about that?
Do we want to send that to
Yeah.
public safety, or?
I don't know.
I mean, do we want to discuss that in council? I have not been
Because it's
quite
park,
sure how to answer that. I
Could
did,
about it. Because it's the reason is public safety.
Mhm.
That's the reasoning,
yeah,
right? But
public safety and bringing down the capacity of the park, or, so, and then also, I was asking Jason, I would probably need to talk to Sherry and find out, because most people are saying, well, we pay for that park because we live in Bonney Lake. That's Bonney Lake's park. It's technically a regional park. And I believe that we got the passes for the boat launch because the boat launch isn't part of regional, it's part of Bonney Lake. But the parking isn't necessarily part of
Yeah, that was
regional.
Yeah, that was a tricky question, and I don't know the answer to it. So, when we acquired Allen York Park, it wasn't acquired using city funds. It was acquired using an RCO grant in the 1970s.
RCO.
Oh, sorry, Recreation Conservation Office. Hey, catch me. They're the state agency, and they gave us a grant to purchase that property with the proviso that we kept it open as a park. And when you look at the application, it was to serve eastern Pierce County, not the city of Bonney Lake. And so when we do things that affect that kind of
That's why I can't have permits specifically for city of Bonney Lake residents, because it has to be open. Because that's been another suggestion, is to issue a permit, or they can
Mhm.
show their ID that they're a city of Bonney Lake resident, but it's for a broader group of people.
Right, and so we want to check with RCO to see kind of what our flexibility is within that kind of contract authority.
So why
Can
don't
we
we,
check
why
with
don't we
the vendor?
bring that up during open
Sure.
discussion tonight
sure.
at the meeting? And also, I was just wondering, where are we sitting with the grant that we got for the play park?
Yes, so I am working with the state on gathering documentation they need for the contract, so I'm
Okay.
working on that. And I'm hoping to bring that forward in August. hopefully.
Fabulous.
Yeah, so we soon.
So if we got people asking questions
Yeah.
about that play park that we have the funds for, but they haven't been released yet, so.
Yeah, and that funding actually just became available through the state because of their budget cycle, so we're actually early in the process with the state for that, so. There is also a project webpage on our website too, so people can always get updates there. Not
Wonderful.
much for that.
And then going back to the Pigwood Park meeting, I know people have asked, one of the questions also is where does the money go to? When we set that all up, the council restricted those funds to only be used for park improvements. So the funds go into a special account that could only be used for projects that build new park capacity. So as we talk about it, it is important to consider, keep in mind, yes, it is security. Yes, it is helping eliminating kind of the problems that we've been having at the park, but it's also another funding mechanism for future park improvements as well.
Even though residents didn't necessarily buy the park, it's city funds that they have paid for that are used to maintain the park.
Correct.
Correct. So that is gonna be another. great
Yeah,
area.
so yeah, let's discuss that because then we'll have public safety there as well.
Yeah,
And they're the ones that kind of, I mean, I know we started talking about it about a year and a half ago, so I think that'll be better for Chair Baldwin to help answer that.
right, and there's always some cars parked in
Yeah.
there after dark, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
And that was the other
yeah.
The other thing that we're grappling with the city resident thing is we have people from the apartment complexes who are using it as an external parking lot. So I like to say this is one of our famous Rubik Cubes project. There's really no good solution to it. We have to work our way through, but yeah, you're, Councilman Barak, you're actually correct. And that's why I need to just talk to the state is while the state helped pay for the park, we pay every year for the maintenance. And so what differential does that buy between community residents, between city residents and non-city residents? And there is flexibility. I just don't know what that flexibility looks like at this point. And so I just want to reserve saying yes or no until I can do that level of research.
We have 4 minutes, so I guess meeting is adjourned.
All
Thank
done.
you, everybody.